All right, so welcome everybody. Thank you for coming. In today's session, we're going to talk about managing a token system for specifications grading. And we assume because you're here, you've already been convinced previously of the utility of a token system. So we're not really going to go into that too much. What we're mainly going to focus on, Kate and I, is how we use Canvas to facilitate this token economy in each of our classes. So I guess we'll do the introductions now. So in my case, so first of all, hi, I'm Steve Mang. I'm an assistant professor of teaching in the chemistry department. And the classes that I use specifications grading in and a token system in are mostly, or are only smaller classes. So fewer than 100 students in every case, and upper division classes. In one case, a writing class or a couple of writing classes, and then one upper division lab course. And so I'll let Kate introduce herself now.
I'm Kate McNelly. I am currently a lecturer at Emory University, so I am a primarily teaching-focused faculty member here. I just finished my PhD last year at UC Irvine, and I have been implementing specifications grading since grad school. So currently I teach a large laboratory course. So I have about 400 students, and I've been doing specifications grading in that. So when I talk to you about how I manage the token system, I'm going to be framing it in the context of how I manage with the students and with my 16 plus TAs that I have.
So, okay, here is today's agenda. We've already done the introductions. We'll talk about a little bit about how to manage these token systems, how we both address this issue. There's a separate bullet point here for Q&A, but really this is small enough that you should feel free just to either type in the chat or really unmute yourselves, interrupt us. We're both fine with that. We'll do a little bit of breakout rooms and like a discussion about either how you plan to implement a token system in your class or questions that you have about implementing a token system, this kind of thing. And then we'll talk about, Kate and I will both show you a token trade-in list that we use in our classes, essentially a set of rules that governs our token economy. And this is kind of the first step in setting up a token system in your class, is coming up with these rules. And so we'll have some time for you to talk about how you might do that or challenges you might face, this sort of thing. So in both of our classes, we use this system of a token economy to facilitate specifications grading. And the main thing that we're trying to facilitate is this idea of revisions and resubmissions. And in one sense, these are built into our classes without tokens, without students having to spend anything on them. But then in another sense, we recognize that there may be some cases where students need, an extra try, or they need to be able to do something that is not already built into the class. And so tokens can give you the flexibility to offer these things to some students while not having them be a major part of the class for students where it's not really an issue or they don't really need them. So what I'll show you now actually is I have a couple of different token trade-in lists here for a couple of different classes that I teach. So in this one, Chem 180W is our senior thesis writing class. So it's an upper division writing class only for chemistry majors who are participating in undergraduate research. And so this document you'll see has the same format in both of the ones that I'll show you. The idea here is that this document lays out the rules by which students can earn tokens and redeem tokens. And so if you went to the TEA sessions earlier, we talked about this a little bit, but there are studies that show that students having this ability to earn tokens and redeem tokens gives them this sort of like feeling of control over their learning experience, helps them with sort of like, I suppose, feeling that they are they have opportunities to demonstrate their learning, even though you may think that you've designed a class where they have plenty of opportunities to demonstrate and plenty of opportunities for revision. I still get comments where students ask for more opportunities, feel like their effort is not being rewarded, various ways that they're demonstrating that they need more choice and more chances. And so the idea of the token economy is to give them both of those things. So the way that I use tokens in my class is, to give them that, to give them, for example, an opportunity to submit an assignment later than my course policies already allow for, to give them revision opportunities beyond what my course policies already allow for, or to give them a chance to do something that I really don't want them to do, but if they have a lot of tokens and they really want to, for example, drop a quiz from the calculation of their final grade, they can do that, even though this is not ideal to me. If they are indicating that that's really important to them and their experience in the class, then I'm going to let them do that kind of thing. So, okay, the token trade-in list. This is available from the first day of class, and this is something, if you're going to set up a token economy rather, I recommend making it available from the first day and deviating from it, or modifying it as little as humanly possible. So we have the general policy here. I start everybody with 3 tokens, and I'll show you what 3 tokens is enough to do in a second. But I have a small class, this is for a small class, but all my classes are relatively small. And so I tell students that they can sort of redeem them as they please. They can wait till the very end and identify their greatest need, or if they turn in a paper and it's really bad, they can right away ask for another revision and resubmission opportunity. But then I give them a final date. So in this case, the last day of instruction was June 4th. And so I say, you have to let me know by then what you want to do. The first thing that I tell them that they can use tokens for is for late assignments. So basically, I have a very lenient late policy, which is that if you let me know beforehand that it's going to be late, it's fine. I don't even need really a reason. And so they'll get a free 24-hour extension. Okay, so this was my original attempt to be extremely lenient. I said, if you tell me how long you need, I'll give you that amount of time. I was having students ask for 3 weeks or something, and this was unfair to the TAs. So my revised sheet says you get a free 24 hours, and then after that, it costs you a token. For resubmissions, they get free resubmissions, but then if they need another one after that, if they didn't do a satisfactory resubmission, they can use tokens to get more. So, okay, for 1 token, they can submit a late assignment without a prior warning, or they can increase a score on what is essentially a complete or incomplete assignment by a point. So the journal club quiz in this case was a really easy quiz about a journal article. They needed to get 5 out of 5 questions correct to get credit. So if they only got 4, they can just give me a token and say, okay, I'm good. For 2 tokens, they can start doing things which are a little more substantial. So they got an unsatisfactory score on a simple assignment. They can just replace that with a satisfactory without having to resubmit. Or they can get a second resubmission on a writing assignment. And then as the token count goes up, the sort of importance of the assignments that they can fix goes up. So they can, for 4 tokens, they can replace a low pass writing assignment with a high pass without resubmitting. Also on this sheet, so I mentioned that they get 3 tokens for free, but then they can earn more as the course goes on. And the things that they earn tokens for are things that I want them to do, but that I don't really have time to make an assignment for within the class. And in this case, in this class, I don't really have many of those. So I give a Qualtrics survey that measures student attitudes to specifications grading. I really want them to do that, so I give them a token for it. If they, the post-course one, same deal. And then I tell them, if you do academic dishonesty, I'm going to really charge you for that. You're going to lose 3 tokens. For this other class is a little more complicated, has more kinds of assignments. So here, I can have them do quiz corrections as well. And I would like them to do quiz corrections, but I don't really have time to work those into the course. And so in that case, I just say, if you do a couple of them, you get a token each. And so they can earn up to, in this class, they can earn up to 9 tokens over the course of the quarter. So, okay, that's kind of the overview of like what a token trade-in list looks like. Now, in terms of how I manage this in Canvas, so in the interest of not sharing any student identifying information with you all, we have made this Canvas sandbox that is the sample token system. And in my case, because my classes are so small, I can manage my entire token economy within Canvas. And so just really quickly, I'll show you how this works. So in my assignments, I have an assignment called token balance. All right. And if I go to the speed grader for this assignment, there's only one student in here called test student. And this student may have made a comment. Can I use 3 tokens to raise my grade on assignment 3? The score on this token balance assignment is their token balance. And so if I see this, or if my TA sees this, if it's a class that I have TAs for, I can just say, okay, used, done. And then I can submit this. I can change their token balance to 1 because they wanted to use 3. And then I would go to their assignment 3, wherever that is. And I would do the same thing. I would change the score, whatever it's going to be. I actually can't remember what I set up their score to be. I guess they don't have one. But then I would say, okay, you get a 2. I'm increasing your score to 2, whatever that is. And then I would leave a comment here as well. And for a class of about 100 students, I would say that I spend 10 minutes a week on this. Most students don't use tokens until the very end, and then it's kind of an all hands on deck thing with the TAs. But for this part, during the quarter, not a very big deal. All right, so Kate, do you want to show us how you use tokens in your class?
Yes.
I guess I need to stop sharing here.
Oh, yes, please. Okay, so I'm not going to go over some of the details because Steve already went over what a token trade-in list is and how you can incorporate things like revise, resubmit, or extension deadlines into the token trade-in list. So I'm going to focus more on how I set up my token trade-in system for my large class that has about 400 to 500 students, and I had 16 TAs. So the TAs is an added layer of complexity, but the way I did it and the way it worked out pretty well last semester was that I actually had the TAs kind of manage it for their section specifically because they each had about 30 students. So I'm going to show you this. Okay, so like Steve, I have a tokens assignment. Let me just put this down so I can see it. Okay, so I have a tokens assignment, and I'm a little obnoxious sometimes, but I want to be very clear. The amount of points that the students have on this assignment is the number of tokens they have, because I experienced a lot of questions with that, especially at a large scale in a large scale class like this. So this is always on the top of my assignment. I also have the deadline for when students need to use them. I'll talk a little bit about this because I don't think Steve mentioned this, but to actually earn the first couple tokens that I have my students earn, I have them do a reflection assignment, either a reflection assignment on how are they going to earn the course grade that they are going to earn, and in a specifications grading system where I'm also trying to establish student buy-in because they are not familiar with this system. This generally works pretty well because it kind of forces them to look at their student grade tracker and other aspects of specifications grading in the course, and then they reflect on it, right? How am I going to achieve my A? Well, I have to get all of these assignments in an A category. Alternatively, I have sometimes in the past had my students fill out a survey. So I have like a pre-course survey because I want to assess my own class. I want to see how specifications grading has gone for them. So I can have like either two assignments, this assignment or the survey, and then they can choose which one they want to do. Often they choose the survey, but if not, they can do this. And sometimes I'll incorporate a different type of reflection assignment later in the term. I also have a little section here on how students can use a token. And I'm going to point this out, but you don't have to go there. If you go look at the Canvas course you have access to, there's Steve's description here of what the token assignment is, and then there's also mine if you want an example. On this form, so rather than having the student use the comment feature on this assignment to ask if they can use a token, they have to fill out a token trade-in request form for me. And this is again because I have too many students to actually keep track of all of the comments. I also provide them with the token trade-in list. So I'll show you what that looks like. And essentially, it's very much similar to Steve. I have the deadline here. I have information on how students earn tokens, and then I tell them how they can use tokens. So they can trade in the token for a 24-hour extension on any assignment, or they can use a token to reattempt and resubmit a post-lab or a paper section draft. I have some technique quizzes, and this is something that is like, well, you should have studied the first time, but if you didn't do as well with that huge large class, I can say, okay, well, it's a little bit more expensive, but if you trade in 2 tokens, then I will trade in your grade from a needs revision to a low pass, or from a low pass to a high pass. They can't go from a needs revision to a high pass. And then I have random opportunities throughout the semester where they can earn extra opportunities. And just like Steve, I also say that they will forfeit a token if they violate the student honor code. So I have all the information here on the assignment. And if students want to trade in a form, they can click here and it links them to this form. So for me, I use Microsoft Forms, but it is essentially the same thing as Google Forms. And I'll show you an example of a Google form in a minute. But this is essentially telling them, okay, this is how you use a token. You need to use this form in order to actually request the use of a token to trade in for something. For me, they have to have an Emory email address, so that's just part of it. And then they have to tell me their token balance. They have to attach a screenshot of their current token balance. So that is if they go to their token assignment, they look at their own, actually, that is not right. One second. If I go to student view, okay, I'm going to go to my assignments as a student. I'm going to look at my token balance. And then I can see my grade here. So this is the token balance. So this is what I want students to take a screenshot of. They have to take a screenshot of this screen showing what their token balance is. And then if I go back to the form, they have to upload that file. And that's just a check to make sure that they're not saying, you know, I have 5 tokens, but they only have 3. It also just acts as a kind of check and balance for me and the TAs. We have a record of those token screenshots. They then have to tell me how to use the form. Sometimes they can also trade in or they can select an option that is to try and earn an extra token. They have to tell me what they want to trade a token in for. And then they have to, if they have any comments, questions, they have to put it here. So for example, sometimes, I have 9 post-lab assignments. So they can say reattempt and resubmit a post-lab assignment, but then in the text here, they have to tell me this is post-lab 3, this is for post-lab 5, or whatever. And then they submit it. Now on my end, I have questions in the form, and then I can see my responses. And in my responses, I can then go to Excel. So at this point, I'm going to actually pause and show you the Google version as well. So this is the Google form trade-in token request form, and it's it's essentially the same. This was for Renee Link's class, so it's a little bit different. But if you do it through Google Form, you will have the same option where you can generate, it won't be an Excel file, it'll generate a Google Sheet. So you click that and then you get this readout. So I've de-identified it so you can't see my students' emails or names, but this is what it looks like. You see, this was just a test between me and my TAs, but as the students fill in the form, there's a timestamp for when they filled out the form. This is a link to the screenshot, but there's a folder in my OneDrive, or in a Google case, it'd be in your Google Drive, that has all of these screenshots in it. You then can see what they requested the token for. So they wanted to trade in a token, to reattempt and resubmit, and what do they want to do it for, right? So this is post-lab assignment, or this is, post-lab 2. So in this sheet, I often will change colors. You can see I have like the dark green on top and the light green on the bottom. This is because the dark green are assignments that I've already gone in and indicated that they have traded in the token or not on Canvas. And then these light green ones are ones that I still have to do. And I'm showing you this one. This is from my summer course that only has 19 students, so I'm actually managing it. But in general, in my large class, the TAs would be managing this part. Okay, so I'm going to go back to my Canvas page here. Okay, I have to leave the student view. Okay, so after the students have requested the use of a token, from this Microsoft Forms, which is the same as the Google form, you can select an option to have the emails sent directly to you. And if it is me, I do that because then I will get all the emails. If it is for my TAs that have, a huge, large class and I don't want to actually get all of the emails, then I tell the students that they have to email. Sorry, I'm jumping around here. I tell the students that they have to email their TA the copy of the Google form. So in the Google form, you can select an option that says to have the responses sent to the people who actually fill out the form. So the students will get an email copy of the form, and then they have to forward that to their TA. And that is a notification to their TA that they want to request the use of a token. After they have done that, I'm going to leave student view. The TA, or I technically, can go into SpeedGrader on the token assignment. And this is going to show what Steve's does, but for me, instead, I would say, okay, test student used token on post lab 3 -1 token. So then that acts as a record for me to track it. I will submit it, and then I will change their token balance accordingly. Or the TA will change it if they are doing it for their section. Then, similarly to Steve, I will go to that assignment. So let's say it's also assignment number 3. Go to SpeedGrader. And for test student, I or the TA will say, traded in token to resubmit, will regrade. Essentially communicating to the student, okay, the TA or I is going to regrade it. Your token submission has been recorded. So if I can't get to it immediately, or if the TA can't get to it immediately, there's a record there indicating for the student that it will happen. And I found that in a large class, this is also particularly important to do this, just because if not, they will email you asking, the students will email you asking, did you get my token trading form? And the answer is yes, I just haven't gotten to it yet. So for that is the flow, the workflow that happens in Canvas and in either a Google form, a Google form, or in a Microsoft form, whatever you have access to. And I would say my TAs have reported for a class of about 30. So my TAs generally have about 30 students in their section. They reported that they spend probably I mean, not even 10 minutes a week. It may be 10 minutes every 2 weeks managing this, because it depends on how many students are actually submitting the form. For me, in my class this summer with 19 students, I would say even less, maybe 5 minutes a week. It doesn't take very long, because it depends on when the students are doing it, and I have everything organized so I can see and track everything. And it's I guess work on the front end to set this all up and organize it, but then after you have it set up, you have it set. So that's where I'm going to end that part. Do you have any questions about the workflow for me or for Steve? Sorry, I think there was something in the chat that I didn't. Oh, it was Steve.
Okay, now that we've shown you, whichever one of our classes seems the most relevant to your course that you're thinking about doing for the upcoming school year, you can sort of reflect on what we just showed you and think about these questions as they apply to your class. So these being, what kind of things do you want students to be able to redeem tokens for? So this can either be, like in my case, it's things that are sort of extra, or, if you want to make it a more, part of like the actual assignments in your class, like for example, my extra resubmission opportunities, or if it's, really extra stuff like dropping a quiz. And then how can students earn more tokens? What do you want the total number to be? This kind of thing. How will you communicate the rules of the token economy to your students? So we've shown you one way. Well, we've shown you two, actually. In my case, I have a Google Doc that students can view directly. In Kate's case, there's a PDF linked on the Canvas site. You can think of other ways to display these rules to your students. And then how do you think you will use the LMS to facilitate the token economy and token trade-ins? So again, you've seen two ways here. Either in my case, I use it, it's the only way that I manage the token economy. In Kate's case, she has the external, Microsoft forms in her case, or a Google form, and then you use the tokens, the Canvas rather, just to keep students on track with how many tokens they have. So think about how this might apply to your class, and then I think Bo is going to open up some breakout rooms. Take a few minutes to talk about it, and then Kate and I will come around and see if you have any questions or anything like that.
Okay, so we are going to talk about what we just talked about. So is there anything you would like to share? Was there anything that was particularly useful in your discussions about the token system?
So in ours, Carlos brought up something that I actually haven't considered yet, but that using tokens may be a way to give students an opportunity to just redo part of an exam rather than this sort of, brute force all or nothing kind of thing. It wasn't really a focus of our discussion, but he just mentioned it. I thought it was a great idea.
Nice.
I believe just any system which students know before, it's good. For future, they will understand what they need to do, and kind of set of rules for studying, yes?
Yeah, thank you for sharing.
I think it is something like trust fund.
Anything else?
So in the chat, Rachel says using a first quiz or assignment for making sure students read the rules at the beginning of the class.
Yeah.
Like a syllabus quiz, but earning tokens. Yeah, I really like that idea, Kate. Thank you for mentioning it earlier.
Anything else? Did I miss something in the chat? Okay, how about the second question? What are potential pitfalls or challenges you may encounter? If you discussed any, or just if you thought of any potential challenges after the discussion you had?
Is this system used for only chemistry or just for other subjects? The same group of students, I mean. Because they need to take time to study this system. If it's all subjects have the same system, it's okay. But if only one discipline use these rules, it's maybe not so good.
It definitely depends on the school that students attend. In my case, I haven't had any students who have seen specs grading. I think maybe I had one who said they had it in high school. So I would err on the side of you almost always have to establish buy-in of some kind or explain everything some kind. I'm gonna go, there's something in the chat.
So yeah, the thing that Carlos brought up in our breakout room was, how do you know how many tokens students should be able to earn? And then Rachel says the same thing in the chat, like how many total should be available? And then, a related question is, how many tokens should it cost to do a specific action? Right. One thing that I'll add is, this has definitely happened to me a couple of times, is that I've had to update the token trade-in list during the quarter, because you get a bunch of emails from students, possibly coordinated, saying, why can't we do X with our tokens? Like mine was, I asked students to make experimental videos during the virtual learning. Instead of writing an experimental section, I asked them to make a video talking about it, and they hated these things. They said, why can't we get out of them with our tokens? And I said, okay, fine, it's going to cost you, but you can do that. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think these are all great questions that I think you don't actually know until you run the class. Like, speaking from my own experience, sometimes I gave the students way too many tokens because they were so nervous about not having enough tokens to, resubmit everything they needed to resubmit and then try again on what they wanted to try again on. And so I ended up giving them like 8 to 10 tokens, and that was just way too much. So many people had extra at the end, and they just used them to basically be like, okay, well, can I trade things in here or trade things in there? I mean, do you have an answer for that, Steve? Like, have you figured out how many is the right amount? I think it takes experimentation.
So what I was saying in our breakout room is, I try to put myself in the shoes of a student who's trying not to learn anything in my class, but still pass it, and which is an outcome I would like to discourage, right? And so I try to think, if I was that student, how would I try to use my tokens? And I make sure that costs a substantial fraction. So, blowing off a quiz and dropping that score from the calculation of the final grade, or not doing any of the experimental videos, or, turning in a lab report that's half done and saying, oh, I'll resubmit it later, this kind of thing. These outcomes that I want to discourage, I try to make it, I try to allow that, because frankly, because I was that student. But I try to make it cost a substantial portion of their tokens to be able to do it, so that they know that I don't want them to do that. It's much more an art than a science, though. I mean, I don't have a formula here, unfortunately.
I think, Steve, it will very close to monopoly. Yes, this is some kind of game, if you want my opinion. How much you can put the tokens there? Is it too much or not? And how much it will change the grade? And the thing that you brought up is something I think very pertinent. Is there some corner cases, supposing that somebody will not participate in anything, and somehow he got some good grade? Is it possible?
Yeah, so right. I mean, you do want to think about that, but then, I gave it the least charitable interpretation as somebody who's trying to get away with something, right? But the same thing goes for a student who has some horrible personal tragedy during the quarter, and they need help because they're not able to focus on every single assignment, right? And the token system gives you a way to give that person some flexibility without judging whether their personal tragedy is tragic enough, right? They can do things late, they can drop a assignment, they can whatever, right? To help them get past this personal circumstance without you having to say, yeah, okay, your personal circumstance is bad enough that I'll let you, I'll relax the course rules for you. In this case, the rules are the same for everybody. It's just that there's some flexibility built in.
Yeah.
But it also works for the people who are trying to game the system as well.
But then I'd argue, are they actually gaming the system if, let's say, they get extra tokens to have opportunities to reattempt and resubmit, and when they resubmit the assignments, they are doing better?
Right. Yeah. What I should have said is the people who would have gamed the system, but then you've worked around that with your token rules. Yeah.